Well, hello there.
Hi there.
Friends, lovers. Thank you for joining us. Today is Sunday, and this is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. Oh, I don't know, my screen flipped around. Should I fix that?
No, that's okay.
All right, hello there.
I think people can see us.
Yeah, well, they can see us. I just can't see that they can see us, seeing me, seeing you. Hello, you good people.
We need validation. We need technological validation.
Yeah, well, now everything's working because I can actually see that we are out there, and the best part is that I can see that our friends are out there. Yes, folks are in the chat. Hello, Jim, Matthew, Unsigned 32. Thank you for joining us. All of you who are watching live, and even those of you who catch the show after the fact on the podcast. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, and today is Sunday, January 14th. 2 weeks into this fine new year, 14 days in, 352 days left. I love the unbalance there. We were just a couple weeks in, kind of got started, kind of got the new year going. It's what we're talking about today.
It's almost the end of January. No,
and we've 352 days left to get it right. Yes. 346 days until Christmas, 291 until Halloween, 77 days until Easter, and 31 days until Valentine's Day. If you have a Valentine,
yes,
get that planning going.
And if you don't have a Valentine, happy second Halloween.
That's right. Well, and you got to love on your own fine self. I take that to mean whatever you like. I'm going to jump right to on this date. Do this real quick. It's maybe one of those short shows we always promise and rarely deliver. On this date in 1967, speaking of Valentine's, speaking of love, the Human Be-In. Yes, the Human Be-In takes place in San Francisco, launching the Summer of Love, 1967. Those of you who've got a few years on you, you may well remember this, or at least remember reading about it in San Francisco. You know, that country that's kind of, that city that's kind of falling apart.
I forgot to put the flower in my hair.
Oh, if you're going to San Francisco, between 20,000 and 30,000 people gathered on the polo fields of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Kind of looks like that now, except they're kind of tents of homeless people. But 20,000 to 30,000 people gathered for the day-long event. The only infrastructure, this sounds exactly like Woodstock, the only infrastructure was a flatbed truck and an amp, which served as a stage for musical acts and speakers. Counterculture icons such as Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, and Allen Ginsberg addressed the crowd. Timothy Leary, the psychologist, was he even a psychologist, and advocate for LSD, shared his famous phrase, "Turn on, tune in, drop out." For the first time in public. Bands including the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, and Big Brother and the Holding Company, we think of as Janis Joplin, performed sets for their fans, many of whom were, of course, smoking weed or dropping acid. You know, you all know me. You know, I'm the hippie aesthetic resonates with me. I'm that kind of, you know, it's all good, man, kind of thing. No, this was not a good thing. So if you need an antidote, if you're not already familiar with Ayn Rand's essay and lecture delivered at the Ford Hall Forum, Apollo and Dionysus, that really is the answer to the Be-In, the answer to Woodstock, the answer to the hippies. You know, again, there was something about the hippie aesthetic which resonated with me. Why? Probably because I was like 5 or 6 years old and didn't know any better. I had the mentality of a little child, so.
Well, I had the same thing with a lot of 80s stuff. You know, a lot of punk rock stuff, and I took it. You know, just like you took the best of hippie culture, I took the best of punk rock culture.
That's true.
Yeah, that's
true. Again, for some of us, the hippies were an answer to the kind of repressed and oppressed and people, you know, living, you know, responsible people going to work 9 to 5 every day, but had no passion, no values, no lust for life. We saw that and we thought, oh man, people gotta be more present. You gotta be where you are, man. Okay, not a good answer, but you can see where we were coming from. That did happen on this date, 1967. That's the only on this date I'm going to talk about. Again, quick show. Did you ever go fly a kite? Yes, it's International Kite Day. Amy, have you ever actually flown a kite?
Yeah, I did, but maybe once or twice, and that's it. And it didn't really work very well. I think maybe, I don't know. It was a long, long, long time ago. And unfortunately around here, if you really want the high winds, it's going to be really cold outside.
Not a good time of the year to fly. I don't know why today is International Kite Day, but it is. It's out there. I've got a New York Times article actually on the history of kites that I thought was interesting in the show notes. If you look at the description on YouTube, at the long and exciting and interesting and valuable show notes, you will find a link to that New York Times article. Incidentally, if you're not a subscriber to the New York Times Online and you think, I don't even want to click that, man, I'll get hit with their paywall, I have put in a link to the guest article. As a subscriber, I get to give away guest articles. In fact, if there's ever something you want to read on the New York Times website and you get stuck, feel free to message me. I could probably give you the guest article for that. I get to do that 10 times a month. It's also Happy National Sunday Supper Day. Although some sites report it as Sunday Supper Month. Sunday supper, Sunday dinner used to be a thing. And for some of you, I hope it still is, that you get together with your family on Sunday night and sit down and have a proper dinner at the table, no television turned on, everybody looking at each other, talking to each other, having conversations. I hope that is a thing that still happens. I got to tell you, on Sundays, at dinner time,
Yes.
for some reason I find I'm usually occupied with other things.
Right. Well, I hope that, perhaps you're having Sunday supper with us right now. I've got some tea. Robert's got some coffee. That's about it. I do
have coffee. We'll tell the story of GLOW, Great Lakes Objectivists, in our monthly dinner, which included the new Keurig machine. My coffee maker finally gave out. Yes,
it went kaput.
I must admit, when I used to be a highly paid information technology professional, my attitude about coffee machines was that they were disposable.
Yeah, we had a lot of, Mr. Coffees around,
I
believe.
But even when we got a nice Keurig machine, I thought, I'll clean it out, I'll rinse it out. But as far as doing a descaling procedure every 2 months,
not every 2 months.
That's not, read the instructions. It's not going to happen. If the machine wears out after 5 or 10 years and I have to replace it, it's just money, and that's fine by me. Well, after 5 or 10 years, our machine did wear out, probably because I wasn't descaling it every 2 months. Fresh coffee from a fresh Keurig machine in the forever newlyweds mug there. Look at that. So, yes, I'm drinking coffee. Amy's drinking tea. If you are enjoying your Sunday dinner, happy National Sunday Supper Day. Or month, depending on who you're reading.
I kind of wonder going into the future, with people going to church less and less, dressing up on Sundays less and less, having less Sunday suppers, and like not considering Sunday to be the day of rest. I kind of wonder if people will, without religious traditions and things like that, will people readopt that idea? I think it's kind of a neat idea, maybe.
I like it.
Maybe once a month, like at GLOW.
Heck
but
yeah.
That's Saturdays, so.
I did a whole talk on that. I called it Weekends and Holidays.
Yes.
And my point was that calendars are valid. Holidays are valid. Taking certain days, setting them aside for certain things, it is consistent with human consciousness and our conceptual nature to do that. Even though some people say, no, man, it's arbitrary. It's arbitrary that so many people work 5 days a week and take the weekends. It's arbitrary that we celebrate holidays on certain days of the year. No, it's not arbitrary. It is human. It is conceptual. It is the way that we handle the passing of time in a meaningful and useful and effective way.
Yeah.
So,
Christopher in the YouTube chat says we'd have a nice roast beef with Yorkshire pudding.
Wow.
Oh, that sounds really good.
We never had Yorkshire. We had Sunday dinner at our place, but we didn't have Yorkshire pudding.
Well, I'll tell you what we do sometimes have, and I need to readopt this, but I've got a really lovely Nordic ware popover muffin pan.
That's true.
And I used to make popovers. Popovers are so delightful You find a good recipe on Martha Stewart. A lot of good reputable websites have good recipes for that. There's a little bit of chemistry involved with it, but it's actually quite easy to make. And you just pour it into a little popover pan, stick it in the oven, and somehow a miracle happens.
It really
and
is.
This bread mushroom cloud thing rises and doesn't destroy anything. It actually creates happiness and goodness.
Yeah, it's popovers are popovers. They're not anything. They're not bread. They're
then
not.
You open them up and they're airy and light, and then but they taste so delectable, and they have a lot of egg in them. And you put some butter on it. It's really so good.
Yeah, they're not croissants. They're not rolls. They're not muffins. They're popovers. They're unique. If you've never made a popover, you might investigate that.
But for those who don't know what Yorkshire pudding is, it's a big popover. That's what that is. At least that's the way I would describe it. And you put a little bit of, I think, beef broth or some kind of beef flavoring or something. I do believe. Let me know in the chat if that's right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Christopher Smith, he also says, my lake is bigger than yours. He's talking about the 60s, and I'm not sure what the reference is. And I feel like I should know that. I should know where that comes from. Very strange. Well, speaking of people who were famous in the 60s and throughout that era, we celebrate today the birthday of the late Alan Toussaint.
Yes.
The great pianist, the great jazz man, the great songwriter, and of course born in and associated with New Orleans.
Love that man, and I love his history, and I love his story, and I love his storytelling, and I love his music. And there's in the show notes, Robert put a link to this is the most stunningly beautiful recorded live performances of one man on a piano. It is so good.
It is Alan Toussaint performing Southern Nights, which some of you will think of as associated with Glenn Campbell. You know, if Wichita Lineman made Glenn Campbell famous in the 60s, Southern Nights made Glenn Campbell famous in the 70s. Well, he didn't write either one of those songs. Alan Toussaint did write that song. And Amy's right, that video is in the show notes, in the description on YouTube. And it's charming and it's sweet. And you think the subject is so light, but somehow it gets you right in the feels, right here.
Oh my gosh. And he talks about his childhood, and he talks about growing up and speaking Creole. And it's just the most beautiful thing ever, and it reminds me so much of New Orleans. And by the way, I do have my Cafe Du Monde mug in here, although it doesn't have coffee with chicory in it. It has tea.
You are in New Orleans mode.
I am.
Very, very sweet. So yes, Alan Toussaint lived to be 77. That's not too young. That's a good life right there. So huge shout out. Since we're doing musicians, one more birthday today, because today is the 55th birthday of a man still with us. Really just the most awesome guy in rock and roll. Also a great musician, but really just the gentleman of rock and roll, Dave Grohl, famously of Nirvana and now Foo Fighters. Dave Grohl turns 55 years old today. If you haven't seen his documentary on Sound City, you know, the West Coast studio that was essentially saved from abandonment and ruin by Dave Grohl, you should watch that. I didn't link to it, but if you look up Sound City on any of your video apps, you will find it, and it's both fun and enormously inspirational.
It is.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Let's see.
Do you remember when Dave Grohl, during the pandemic, I think he spent so many days doing live music, like live jam sessions on YouTube or something like that. He would get, a bunch of people together or not, or maybe just the people that he was living with. I think that was the case. And then they would do some kind of jam session every day or every week. And it was really great. I hated the pandemic. I hated it so much, but there are some very innovative and creative things that came out of it, because human beings are our favorite species, and they are like that. They create things out of bad situations.
Darn right.
It's good.
Yeah, Chris Smith in the chat is saying he's on Lake Ontario. I didn't realize that you, like us, are on one of the Great Lakes.
Huh.
Wow. For folks who don't know, Lake Ontario is I always think of as the fifth of the Great Lakes, just in order of the direction the water goes.
Yes.
So much of it originates in Lake Superior and Lake Michigan and then comes through Lake Huron and goes down to Lake Erie where the fish drink mercury. I know, not anymore. It's been cleaned up since then, but I remember the glory days. And then finally through Lake Ontario up to the St. Lawrence Seaway and out to the ocean.
Yes, so if you're living in Toronto, you'll have access to it. If you're living in Rochester, New York, you'll have access to it.
Yeah, darn right. Oh, here, I'm just refreshing my... Sorry, I love the people in her chat. So sweet. Get back to that in a minute. But yes, that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about on this date, but super charming and relates to what we've been talking and thinking about. We had a Great Lakes Objectivists dinner, get-together, meeting with some of the best people associated with this philosophy right here in Studio Nasir, and that was great fun.
And it wasn't like a big study session or anything like that.
No,
it wasn't
casual.
heavy. It was just very casual. But it's a really lovely feeling just to be amongst like-minded people who know what you're talking about when you're talking, let's talk about the primacy of existence. And they're like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's true.
It's
true. It's funny because we weren't even having a study group, and yet all that stuff comes up.
It does.
But yeah, you get together with kindred spirits and burn down trees and just have a good time.
Burn down trees. We went out back, and it was, I don't know what, it was 10 degrees out or something last night. And it was
cold.
And it was windy, and it was like really like gusts of 20 miles per hour. And so we Robert engineered this, thankfully, and he made it nice and safe.
What did I engineer?
But we took our real Christmas tree, you cut it up, and we made a bonfire of it. So at one point, the flames rose, I don't know, probably a good, at least 7 feet, if not 8 feet. I have this on video, by the way.
Which is pretty high in a small backyard. Our property
big.
Isn't that large.
It's beautiful. And then the sparks fly out of it. And it's just lovely to see a really, really tall bonfire.
Yeah. We may have reported on that last year or the year before. It's becoming a tradition because if you've never seen a pine tree on fire, and I mean one that's, if it's been your Christmas tree, so it's getting kind of dried out, they burn like fireworks. It's amazing what happens when you set a Christmas tree on fire.
It is glorious. And then what we do is we save a branch of our Christmas tree from this year so that we can burn it next January.
That's right. You always hold over a bit through, so the Christmas spirit never leaves you throughout the year.
That's right. So we had a branch from 2022 from that December and from our last Christmas tree, and I put that on the fire, and it made wonderful little big sparks. It was
because
great.
it had an extra year to dry out.
Yes.
Good stuff.
It was beautiful.
Good. And it goes along with the Baphomet plush doll that Christopher Smith says is hypnotizing him. That is as it should be.
Yes, this is Baphomet.
Yeah.
AKA, I don't know, Satan or Lucifer or something, but he's just too cute. He's just too cute. Woo!
So Amy decided she liked the plushies this year.
Yeah, these are Squishables or something. And
might be a brand name, but I think it's what everybody's calling all of them.
And then they make all these weird things and everything, and weird stuff like like the Plague Doctor plushies and things like that. But
there's a lot of cute ones, but there's a lot of really outrageous ones too.
Baphomet is very, very soft and cushiony and everything. Most like the twinkles in his eyes.
He has twinkles in his eyes.
Yes.
There
it's
you go.
So nice. And then to go with him.
How many legs does he have? Are there
just 4?
I guess there's 4, yeah.
Just 4. And
I see.
Two horns, 2 ears,
it's
and
hard
2
to tell
wings.
with something shaped like that what parts are what.
Well, speaking of that, to go with him, I have the seraph.
Okay, when you picked these out for me to give you on Christmas, this is the one that most confused me. I can't even. I guess the ones in the back are wings and the one in front are arm wings?
No, they're arm wings, but then it also has
there's
feet,
wings down there. All the feet are wings. And there's
leg wings.
Like 8 appendages.
And so, and he has like a little fiery crown and like a fire. And there's supposed to be eyes on here as well. Let me know if you know what this is. or what you think it might be. But I'll just tell you right now, this is the sort of loosely based on what the Bible described angels actually look like. So he's a seraph, not as in the font, but but as in seraphim. You know, all the little angel seraphims and things like that. So this one here is actually especially soft and plushy. And
so if you've heard descriptions of heaven and you've been thinking twice about, do I even want that? Well, this is what you're going to be there as, I guess, or something, if that is your belief tradition.
So anyway, yeah, this is what you're going to look like when you're dead. No, I'm kidding. Oh, and then it
makes me regret mortality a little less.
We have a couple more. We've got Charlie Opossum. He has a wonderful little hoodie that says, "The world is full of possibilities." He's got a nice little possum tail. And look how adorable he is. So sweet. Just love him.
Yeah, some of our friends have already met the possum in a hoodie. That was from a prior Christmas.
And this is actually a stuffy representation of my canine symbiont Coco, who I may have talked about on the show years before. But this Coco belonged to our wonderful friend Echo, and she passed away this past year and everything like that.
The dog, not the friend.
No, the dog, Coco. Yeah. That's why she's a stuffy now.
Yes, well, there you go.
I'm sure if I pass away, somebody will make a stuffy of me and like snuggle me. Anyway, yeah, so this is Coco, and she's just so sweet, and she looks really very much like the original dog. And
Christopher wants to know what a possum is. A possum is an opossum.
Know what a possum is?
Some people call them opossums, and some people call them possums.
So
it's kind of like flammable and inflammable.
They're not rodents. They're marsupials.
That's right.
And they are, I think, the only ones. They basically are. They hiss. They open their mouths, and people are really afraid, but they don't actually hurt anybody. And they're nocturnal animals. And they basically the women folk opossums. They have babies, and all the babies are carried on their backs, kind of like wolf spiders, but much, much, much cuter. So you just look it up on YouTube. Yeah. And but yeah, no, Coco here. She is. So I got Echo, who is the owner of Coco, one of these as well. So we have twin Cocos.
So you can both have fond memories of cuddling this little dog.
It's so
and
nice.
Your little dog too. Very nice. Jim says his dog had a plush elephant. That he had let's say he had a special relationship with it. Well, you gotta take your romance where you can find it.
Valentine's Day is coming up.
That's right. It's right around the corner. Oh my lordy. All right, real quick. What are we listening to? What are we watching this week? I just listened to the One Yarn Brook show that he's done in the last few days because he's been traveling and we're all going through YBS withdrawal. But he did do his show on 2024, an ambitious 2024. Very short episode. It was good. Good reminder to actually live your values. And it was handy because, of course, it's what I've been thinking about this week. We've had some conversations about things that we've said we need to do that we haven't done.
Yeah.
For example, decluttering our castle.
Yes. If anybody has any ideas about how to throw stuff away that you're attached to emotionally, and how to convince yourself that you're never going to use it even when you're 80, just let us know. I think I have it pretty much figured out, but the hang up that I have is, I spent so much money buying this and now I'm just throwing it away or something. And no, I have to save it, so I have to give it away someday. Or I have to save it because I got to put it on eBay and sell it. And it's like my bottom line that I came to yesterday, when I had a little bit of an angry talk with myself in front of Robert. Robert and I, we don't fight with each other, we just fight with ourselves. And
with each other.
with each other in the room. And so, I thought to myself, you know what, I've got, say, a room full of clutter, and I wanted to convert it into something, right? And I want to make it useful. I want to actually make it purposeful, so all of this clutter that I'm not using, it may as well just not exist. It may be empty. It may as well just be empty space. It doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't have a function. It's dysfunctional. So I can't use the room for what I want to use it for, because I have all this stuff.
And to be clear, what makes it hard is that it's not like old, discarded, obsolete things. It's things that feel like they have valuable. It could be art supplies. It could be furniture that you've always wanted to set up. It could be anything. Little
knickknacks that I've given to Robert, or Robert's given to me on our anniversaries. Just stuff.
Yeah.
It's really cute. You can put it up on your mantle or whatever, but it's
except over the course of time you have so much of
that.
Now we could do a Marie Kondo and say, well, does it spark joy? And if not,
that doesn't cover it. Sorry.
It really doesn't work.
No.
I mean, it works for a few things, and that's why she's famous for that kind of advice. It turns out we need to go richer and deeper at this stage of our lives.
Yes.
Yes. So watching the Yaron Brook talk, it was a reminder, because he's addressing an audience of objectivists, Ayn Rand fans, people who take values seriously, it was kind of a reminder that, look, if you're not able to focus on your values and then follow through and do those things, you're just not very good at this philosophy. You call yourself an objectivist, but you're not doing these things. And he didn't try to suggest, oh, well, then you're a hypocrite or you're not an objectivist. He was just making the point, well, but if this is your philosophy, then you should be using it in order to live your own best life. So I liked it. Again, it was kind of short. It almost seemed like it ended before he fully made his point, but it was good. It was well done, and I do recommend it, and it is in the show notes. Yes. It goes along with Alex Epstein's talk, how to leverage objectivism to become a leader in your field.
I should listen to that again.
Now, I've recommended this talk before. I've linked to it in the show notes. And it sounds like, oh, this is how you're going to use philosophy to become like the most famous guy in whatever it is you do. But that's not what he means by a leader in your field at all. What he means is using this philosophy to become excellent at whatever it is you want to do. And he tells a story, and a lot of us had this experience about, he had a friend of his who told him, yeah, I'm going to this objectivist conference. And this was early on when Alex didn't even realize there were objectivist conferences. And so his friend goes to the OCON, or whatever it was called back then. He comes back and, yeah, how was it? And his friend doesn't seem very excited. He said, well, it just seemed like there were a lot of people there who weren't living these ideas. They said they believed these ideas, but they weren't. I didn't see what I expected to see. I expected to see a lot of really successful people and a lot of really happy people and a whole bunch of Francisco d'Anconios and maybe some Hank Reardons. And there was some of that, but a lot of it wasn't. It's a great talk because it's kind of a reminder, in my case, I'll just speak personally. I say, oh, well, wait a minute. When I reread, my favorite book, which is The Fountainhead, but even Atlas Shrugged, I think, oh yeah, first time I read this, I thought, it's time to take over the world. It's time to become amazing in every way. And, oh, well, done that in a few ways, but I've fallen short in a few too. Good talk. If you've ever had those thoughts, those feelings, and wondered, man, what can I do with that bit of a clash? It's excellent to listen to.
Good.
Very inspiring. And again, like Yaron Brook's talk, it's not hammering you on the head, oh, well, you should have done better. It's more just, here's how to think, yeah, I do want more. I do want a little more. Life is finite. Yaron really hammered on this, and of course, we have on this show too. Life is finite. Any day that you waste is one more that you can't get back. So make sure at the end of every day you can say, yeah, that was worth it. That was good. So
yeah, I want to correct something.
Yeah.
So Jim in the chat on Facebook, he's like, Marie Kondo has excellent advice on decluttering, and I said, to be fair, I haven't actually read her book, so I'm probably being a snit, and that's a technical term for it is SNIT, I think. And so I haven't actually read her book. So all I know is what I've actually seen interviews of her, for instance. That's it. So
yeah, the book may be more methodical than what we're getting from watching videos.
Exactly. Maybe I should read her book. But yeah, I have my own sort of context for this, and I think it might actually work, or maybe it won't. And that's probably why I've been beating my head on the wall and doing the same thing over and over again, not getting results over the past several years. So we'll see. I'll report back.
Well, Gene Maroney Binswanger also talked about this morning on the HBL Meeting of the Minds. Now that's subscriber only. If you're on the HBL, you may have been on that call. They do a Zoom meeting every Sunday morning with 25 to 50 people participating in that. And Gene led a good session. I think the two essays that we shared last week and are in the show notes, or just go to her blog at thinkingdirections.com, I think those were actually better than what she presented this morning. But this morning's was good too. And she's a good person to read up on when you are thinking, how do I make sure that my New Year's resolutions actually are effective, that I actually take action, that I actually make progress on those. So highly recommended there as well. Because the one holiday that I didn't mention yet is, well, actually there's two of them that I didn't mention. The first one that I didn't mention, because I posted about it on Facebook, facebook.com/Robert Nasir, it's Put Your Pet in a Costume Day. Costume Your Pet Day. And so I posted pictures of our previous and late Bunny Dolly in a few of the costumes that we tried to get her in. She was, like most rabbits, somebody you could put in a costume for 5 seconds, snap a photograph, and that was over.
She didn't quite like it.
She did not want to be a star.
Well, she knew she already was.
That's true. Our very first bunny was a drama bunny.
Oh, yeah.
Athena was like a movie star.
She was.
And you could get a few more seconds out of her in a costume because she was such a glamour bun.
Yeah.
But Dolly was much more zen than that.
Dolly was sort of like she was sort of an Olympic bunny. I don't know, just something. She was a little bit more physical, less glamorous. She was very intelligent. I mean, like ridiculously intelligent.
She was very sturdy, very zen.
Yeah, she was a very human bunny, and but Athena, she was the Greta Garbo of bunnies.
Yeah, Athena was a movie star.
She could just stretch out in front of you, and you look at her, and you couldn't look away ever. You'd just be mesmerized, kind of like Chris's with Baphomet here. You couldn't stop looking at her because she was so beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Jennifer says, did Dolly wear bunny ears? And the answer is yes. If you look at those photographs, she actually had a bunny costume. What do you mean a bunny costume? Why do you put a bunny in a bunny costume? Well, the costume was, of course, made for a cat or some other small animal. And we thought, well, that'll be funny. We'll put a bunny in a bunny costume. So, Jennifer, the answer is yes. Dolly did, in fact, wear bunny ears at one point. And again, not for long. It was hard to keep her in a costume. But she absolutely did that. Again, what's on my mind this week is it is the new year. We're 2 weeks in. If you listen to Gene Maroney's discussion this morning, or if you're not on the HBL, just read her last two essays. One of the points that she made, one of the points that Yaron Brook made, one of the points that I'm going to make to you right now is that you are now 14 days into the new year, 2 weeks, and you may think, oh, my resolutions are going great. But if they're not, or if you haven't made any resolutions yet, but you're thinking you'd like to, don't think it's too late. You are 14 days in. You have 352 days left in the year. The perfect time, I will say what I know a good friend of mine would agree with, the best time to make a change is when you realize a change needs to be made. And you don't make a change by saying, I'll change everything now. No, the real way to make a change, the best way to make a change, and this is your take-home point, the best way to make a change is get that pen in your hand. Mark and Kayla, you can use the pens we gave you last night. If anybody looks up Uniball's pen, the most recommended pen by the New York Times, I don't recommend it. Too fine a point.
Well,
I was disappointed.
I don't mind it being a fine point. This is the thing, is that if it's going to be a fine point, for me anyway, it doesn't feel natural if it has a thick barrel. A thick barrel and a fine point doesn't work.
I know that combination didn't work for you.
No.
In my case, it's where the point is so fine that it feels like it's catching on the paper.
Right.
And you would have to use really special paper to make it feel smooth at all. No, but it was a very good pen. Feels real solid, even more solid, less flimsy, less like the barrel moves around inside of the shaft than the ones I usually use. So we gave those pens away. Back to what I was saying. If you are going to make a change, if you realize right now I need to make a change right now, the very first thing you do is pick up your pen. That's right. Write it down. And the reason is, this is like taking an anchor and throwing it in the water to mark this spot, or whatever other allegory or metaphor you want to use. Right here, right now, write it down. And the reason is, and this is the mistake I've made before, I've complained about this because it's a mistake I've made a lot. I will make a decision to make a change, and then I'll make the change. But some changes you want to make, they can't be done by willpower or just memory or intention alone, because they're projects. And you have to use PM, project management skills, if you are really going to make that happen. And the very first step of that then is to write it down so that you get the intention out of your head, and then keep writing so that you can break it down. Break it down into steps, and each of those steps may be a project, and break each one of those down until you break it down into actual tasks. The kind of tasks that you can put on a calendar, that you can make a schedule of. Then you have a chance of making this succeed. Then you can address it like a project. This is what it means to take a resolution seriously. And that's what I'm working on. My failure mode is I can keep all that in my head. I don't have to write it down. I don't have to treat it that seriously. Otherwise, maybe I'll get bogged down or I'll lose my motivation. Okay, first of all, that's wrong. Second of all, it's wrong. And third of all, wrong, wrong, wrong. You cannot do that. I've done it. I'm actually pretty good at it. I've achieved some things that way. No, in the long run, too many things fall through the cracks. So my advice to you, my gift to you, my intention to you, my orders to you is write that stuff down. Treat it like a project. And more than that, to you objectivists out there, take your values seriously.
Well, to everybody
it feels
out
like
there.
Guilt, doesn't it? I don't want it to feel like guilt. And Gene Maroney makes the point, guilt doesn't work. Negative motivations don't work. They can work in the moment, but in the long run, they sap your will, your motivation. They do not work. So the reason to take your values seriously is not because, I want to be a serious person. No, it's because they're your values. Get excited about this. So my Post-it note for the week says...
Are we already there at the Post-it note?
I'm jumping forward. We can jump backward in a bit.
Okay.
Although I was going to keep it short today. My Post-it note for the week says, what? Why? And those are the two questions I'm going to be asking myself as I put this year's resolutions together. I've only done one so far, and I've got more to do, and I need to write them down and define my purpose and define the task and do all of those things. So my Post-it note says what and why. And then you can see below there, if you can read these small letters there. Here, I'll put this up there for the camera. Everything is backwards. It's like a mirror image on my screen here. What and why? Well, purpose and reason. No, not reason the faculty. Reason as in a reason to do something. Your what? What am I going to do? What am I trying to achieve? What is the purpose of the actions I'm taking? And why? Why do I want that to happen? What is my motivation? What is the value significance? What is the reason? So I've said before, in any given moment, you should know your purpose. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? If I'm going to do a podcast, it's because I want to reach out to people about interesting topics that matter to me and share my values with kindred spirits. If I'm going to call a friend on the telephone, is it just to say hi, make a connection, to make a plan, to let them know I'm thinking about them? A lot of these things we take for granted. It's obvious. I know what the reason is. I don't have to say it out loud to myself. But if you do it consciously, if you always know your purpose, you will find even the most trivial of actions, going to the pantry to get a package of napkins because we're out. You will not forget to do things. You will do things with clarity. You will appreciate your purposes. You will appreciate the actions that you take. and you have a much better chance of achieving the more complicated ones, the ones that really should be projects. So that's why my Post-it note of the week says, what? Why? Or, if you prefer, what is my purpose? What are my reasons?
You know, those questions, one-word questions are always fun. And, you know, something that they teach you in school, and they have you apply things, and you're like, I guess it works. But sometimes it's great to go back to them. What is it? What, why, how, when, and where? Is there another one of them? I forget. But yeah,
Who,
it's
what,
good.
where, when, why. It was like there was one that didn't begin with a W.
How
How? Very good.
and where.
But yeah,
Yes.
the one that didn't begin with a W was always the one that stuck out.
Yeah, and I will probably be doing, you know, asking myself those kinds of questions in a lot of ways for this year, and because there's a lot of opportunity to do all sorts of things this year, you know, but I don't know, actually, because my resolution so far is that I want stress-free creative projects to do. We'll see how that goes. You know, I want to dance more. I want to make more music. I want to create more art. I want to do things, you know, like read actual books,
Yes.
paper books. I want to crochet, and right now I'm making a hat for myself, which is wonderful and exciting, with crochet with broomstick lace stitch, which is great. And I want to actually write letters to the media and politicians, like actually handwrite letters. Yeah, and maybe to other people too. Just handwrite letters to people in general. Maybe praise some folks, you know, and that would be really great. I would love doing that.
Well, we have shared before advice on how to make those things happen,
Yes.
and including some of the things you'll have to do. For example, if you want to do something that's time consuming, you need to decide in advance, well, here's what I'm willing to not do anymore in order to make space for that thing to happen. And we'll continue to share as we go through the year. It's going to be a fun year as we get some of these things on track and take some of you on the journey with us. Speaking of decluttering, one of the motivations for decluttering is you'll find treasures. It's funny, a couple of years ago I bought a summer sports coat, a light tan sports coat, because I realized that I didn't have one. I needed one. We were going to be traveling. But also, I like to put on a summer coat in the wintertime every now and then just to feel that springtime feeling. Well, the funny thing was, I was decluttering a closet the other day, and I came across this jacket that I'm wearing here. I totally forgot that I already had a tan sports coat. It's like, why did I buy a new one if I had this one? And there you go. You will find treasures, and you'll end up dressing completely out of season as I am today, just to bring in that springtime feeling a little bit early. So, lots of reasons for that. We're going to document some of this again as we go. We're going to talk about it with you. You're going to give us ideas as well. In between these Sunday shows, you can meet us online on the Facebooks at facebook.com/Robert Nasir, facebook.com/Amy Nasir. It's so great having a unique name that very few other people have and getting it first on the socials. You can also find me on Twitter, same name. RobertNasir.com has links to all of our stuff.
Yep. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more before we wrap up, but we have a little bit more. I just want to mention a happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day for tomorrow. We may actually go up to our favorite museum, the Henry Ford Museum, to see our favorite dramatic performer, Tony, perform various excerpts from quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. speeches. That'll be great. I'm in the middle of listening to on Audible John McWhorter's pretty good woke racism. That is basically, if you don't know John McWhorter, he's really excellent. I could listen to him all day. He's a linguist and a professor at Columbia University. He happens to be have African American ethnicity. But anyway, yeah, you can find him on Free Black Thought and a lot of other people on Free Black Thought, which is really a fantastic resource. But, the more I think about it, the more I just want to say that I'm grateful to so many Black Americans and so many friends who have that background, and so many heroes. My first hero being Debbie Allen, the dancer and actress, and one of my second heroes, which is Harriet Tubman. And so yeah, I really was very, very much inspired by Black Americans, and it's interesting in this kind of situation with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and wokeism, and all of that stuff. The kind of contention that is stirred up with regard to that, and what Black Americans need to do to actually improve and better themselves. Of course, my answer is that you do it individually and you don't do it collectivistically. You don't, there are no monoliths. Monoliths don't exist either on a white side or a black side. But anyway, a lot of us here in the audience know this. But I just want to say that there are fantastic and inspiring stories that are universal among all human beings. All human beings, no matter your skin color or your race or heritage or whatever it may be. And honestly, like we've said in the past on Life on Earth from the Ayn Rand Center UK show, race and heritage and ethnicity and all of that, and skin color, whatever differences we have, are wonderful little sprinkles of goodness and things that we can actually play around with. We can actually be playful with, and they're like the colors of the rainbow that just make things they just give you a little difference, here and there, that makes it a little bit more wonderful.
It's a smorgasbord. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the different kinds of food, the different kinds of dress, whatever it may be. Human beings of all backgrounds have so much to offer, and it's wonderful to be part of the species. So
we're surrounded by values, opportunities from all sorts of folks. In fact, Christopher is quoting both Ayn Rand and Maya Angelou in the chat, so we are running the gamut, as it should be. That's the beautiful thing about it.
Yes. Yeah, and so in terms of try not to get too down about the situation.
What situation?
With regard to critical race theory and all of that. I think that's turning around. There has been a tendency for people to really focus on the negative and what are the problems, and make up problems that aren't even necessarily there. And that's a shame, because that delimits your ability to embrace your own values, and that puts you at a disadvantage. I would highly recommend not saddling young people with that kind of negative and malevolent view of life, that somehow other people are out to get you, which is not only not true, but it really if you really want to hurt people, that's what you tell them. If you really want to put them at a disadvantage, that's what you do, and it's really awful. I mean, it's like raising a child and telling them that they're stupid and they're never going to get anywhere in life because somebody else is always going to be there to stop them. That is not the way. So anyway, I just want to point that out real quick. I don't know if I agree with everything that John McWhorter is saying in his book. I think that altruism, unfortunately, is kind of intertwined with his approach, which I don't agree with, of course. But it's interesting and fascinating to see how things are playing out. Without any superhero swooping in and saying, "I'm going to save the day." A lot of people are reasonable, and they want to figure these things out, and they will, and they are. So it's good.
As Jennifer Yanolo reminds us, nobody is coming. Nobody is coming to save us. No, we're going to have to save ourselves.
Oh,
And that is exactly the way we need it and want it to be.
Yes.
Yeah. Incidentally, speaking of great black Americans, Jim Ashley says, out of context announcement before I forget everybody, tomorrow on Turner Classic Movies, TCM, there will be a number of Sidney Poitier movies showing. And he says his favorite, In the Heat of the Night, will show at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
Yes.
Yeah.
A very intense and heroically well done film.
Great fun. And gritty. Super gritty.
Yes, intense.
Yeah.
But very, very good.
Good stuff. You know, since you've mentioned this,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring it up. I was going to keep it all positive, wrap up early, let everybody get to their Sunday dinner. But this one goes out because you were mentioning critical race theory and woke and the current culture wars. And, you know, I've spoken to some folks who take that all very seriously, as we all do, but who's also taken it really to heart and believes that we are in a real crisis that could lead to essentially the downfall of Western civilization, which isn't true. And I can make that point another time. But one of the points that I made, and if this is of any value to anybody out there, you can take this for what it's worth. If you are letting people who you regard as immoral, as bad, even as evil, if you are letting them matter too much to you, and by mattering too much, I mean A, thinking that they're representative of the state of the world, which any examination of both the world and any of the statistics associated with it would show you is completely untrue. If you're letting them matter to you, not only are you self-sacrificing, and for no good reason, but you're also handing your enemies a victory that they could never have earned on their own. And I want you to be a little indignant at that idea. I want you to say, oh, I'm not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
Because there is no good reason for it, and there is no value in it to you. The evil in the world is not winning. You can look at all the cases in which there is evil in the world and all of their little victories, and then look at the rest of the world, the 95% of the world that is not all of that, the 98% of the world that is not Russia, that is not Gaza, that is not the worst parts of the United States government, that is not the current educational establishment, woke and DEI and critical race theory. Look at the rest of the world. You know, we fight all of the aforementioned battles, but they don't matter that much.
Right.
They don't color our understanding of this life, of our values, of our passions, of our careers, of our friends, of our family, of the things that give our lives meaning, including little get-togethers like this one here right now.
Yes. Yeah, I also want to give another book recommendation.
What's that?
It's called The Heart of a Cheetah.
Heart of a Cheetah?
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it yet, but it's called The Heart of a Cheetah by Maggette Wade. It's Maggette is Magatte, and Wade is Wade. And she's actually from Africa. She is, I believe she's now living in the United States, but it's her story as an African and an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. And it's a really good story. And she's overcome a lot of obstacles. And yeah, she basically she's been shunned quite a bit, really unjustly, because she's not. I wouldn't call her a conservative or Republican or anything. You know, oh, these scary words. I wouldn't label her as that, and she wouldn't either. But you know, she's the kind of person who is she perseveres. She really is resilient. She's really innovative, and she doesn't give up. And unfortunately, when she tried to do business with certain Americans, they snubbed her because they felt that she wasn't towing the African American line. And but she's not African American. I mean, she is African American, but she's from Africa. She's first generation, and or I should say an immigrant, I should say. But anyway, her story is very, very good and is very inspirational. And she just seems like a heck of a woman, and I would love to meet her one day. I wouldn't say she's an Ian Hersey Alley before, when she was a little bit younger, but yeah, she's really good.
Well, good. That sounds like a great place to wrap up with a positive recommendation.
Yes.
Folks, again, if you are starting this new year a little behind, like some of us are, having wanted to get a little further ahead by the second week of the year, you are now in our club and join the club. And let's make it happen. Let's decide what we want. Let's start putting together plans to make it happen. We don't have to be like those people who go to the gym for 2 weeks and go 5 days a week and then realize, that's not actually what I want. I'm not going to be able to pull this one off.
All right, 3 days a week. Guess we better go tomorrow.
Don't go proving my point like that. No, you don't need to do that. You don't need that at all. No, we can say, okay, great, we're 2 weeks in. We've had 2 weeks to think about what we want, what we're going to do to get it. Now, let's start actually, not dive in and gung-ho and count on willpower to make it happen. But no, let's do what rational people do. Let's start making plans. Let's start putting this together as a project. Let's break that project down into steps and down into tasks, down into something that can actually be scheduled. Let's make it real. Folks, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. If we interrupted your Sunday dinner, or if you're eating dinner while watching, listening, and interacting with us, thank you. We have folks from around the country, so everybody in England, for example, is saying, what are you talking about? It's almost midnight. Thank you for joining us. We are glad you are here. We will do this all again in a week. We are putting plans together for both more interviews on the channel and whatever Life on Earth, the Thursday show, is going to look like going forward. Mm-hmm. If you have any suggestions, any ideas, please feel free to share them with us in the chat or on the socials. Those of you who are supporting the show on Patreon, thank you for being our patrons. It's very much appreciated. If you'd like to join them, go to robertnasir.com. You'll find the link at the bottom of that page, and you can become one as well. And either way, if you like and share the show, you will help us get these ideas out to more people. We've been getting more views on Facebook than on YouTube lately, so if you're watching on YouTube especially, definitely please like the show and consider sharing it out.
Indeed.
And I think that's all there is to say.
Yeah, and Happy New Year again.
And
I'm going to keep saying to myself, Happy New Year every month. Maybe I should say Happy New Month.
Yeah, Matthew Humphreys is saying In the Heat of the Night is one of his favorite films. Poitier is stunning. African-American homicide detective in a racist southern U.S. town. Proud, intelligent, dignified, head held high. What makes it so inspiring, thank you for that comment, what makes that so inspiring is that racism's actually a thing. In some parts of the South in America, it's still a thing in 2024, but especially back in the late 60s. What people faced took heroic effort to overcome, and despite the anti-racism of the present, which I regard as a type of racism, it still remains the case there's racism out there. And it's one thing to say the anti-racists are achieving the opposite of their goals and they need to be fought. It's another thing to say the racism isn't a thing anymore, it's all just stupid. No, it's still out there. There are heroes out there who are, as you say, achieving things despite it all.
Yeah, and John McWhorter actually has a great distinction. He calls it first wave, second wave, and third wave anti-racism. He doesn't refer, even though his book is called Woke Racism, he doesn't even use the word woke. He calls it third wave anti-racism.
Right.
And it's very similar, kind of in that way, of how subjectivity and collectivism creeped into the feminist movement, whereas you've got first wave feminism, second wave feminism, and third wave feminism. And so yeah, it's I like that analogy. It's
a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Outstanding. So folks, thanks for joining us. meant to make it quick. Nope, we ran the usual, what is lately, the usual length. And that's good. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you when we start doing Thursday shows again. Maybe we'll slim back, but we always end up with a lot to say. Folks, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being in the chat. Have an outstanding week. Again, join us on this journey to make 2024 your best year yet. And in the meantime, we wish you every success that you so richly deserve. I know you deserve it. I know you are good people out there.
That is very true. I am good, aren't I?
Yes. It's funny because the word wish gets stuck in your throat as you're an objectivist. We don't use the word wish. Well, what we wish you is what you deserve. We wish you success. We wish you flourishing.
No. I mean, there is a context that Ayn Rand used that word with.
She used it herself.
Francisco D'Antonio and Hank Reardon. Try to guess right. What scene.
Yeah. Some of you will know that scene from Atlas Shrugged.
Yes.
Where Hank Reardon says, I wish... he cuts himself off, and Francisco D'Antonio, of all people, says, afraid to wish, Mr. Reardon? And Reardon says, I wish I could like you as much as I do. You got to read that scene. All right.
Love it.
Folks, be good to yourselves, be good to your people, be good, do good, and get all sorts of good in the most lovely, richly selfish manner ever, because we do wish you all good things, and more than anything else, we wish